Hi, this is Shauna, the CEO and founder of Fuel Talent. One of the things I have loved most in my 25-year recruiting career has always been the stories that people tell. Stories of leadership, career choices, company ideas, and team building. My inspiration for starting the What Fuels You podcast came from being curious about people's lives and wanting to help share their stories. What path brought them to this place? What decisions did they make that led to failures and successes? Who influenced those decisions, and what lessons were learned along the way? I hope you enjoy the What Fuels You podcast. Tom Seery, CEO of Real Self, is today's guest on the What Fuels You podcast. Tom founded Real Self, the leading resource to learn and share experiences about cosmetic procedures and connect with the right doctors, in 2006 after spending several years at Expedia. Today, Real Self receives millions of visitors every month, has tens of thousands of board-certified doctors and healthcare professionals on their platform, and has been featured on many award lists, including Glassdoor's Best Places to Work and Inc.'s fastest-growing private companies. Tom is well known for being passionate about providing radical transparency, and he's doing just that with the successful company he continues to build. He's also a husband and a father and a friend. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you so much. That's great.
You're so welcome. You like it?
I love it.
Okay. We are doing our rapid fire. I'm starting with kind of a hard one. What are you most proud of as far as what you've accomplished so far at Real Self?
Oh, at Real Self, I was like, in life, I was like, that's a deep.
Well, you could do life too.
No, let's start with Real
It's a
Self.
twofer.
My most proud moment, or just overall?
Overall, your most proud accomplishment.
I think it's just like every time I see an email, a message, a post where someone says, "Thank God I read this. Thank God I was here."
Yeah.
If I hadn't had this, I don't know what I would have done. That just fuels me.
I'm sure that would be an awesome thing to see. And I'm on Real Self, and I feel the same way. What word would your kids use to describe you?
Boy, I would hope they would say that I'm there for them.
I like that.
Yeah.
Solid. What quality do you most value in a friend?
Oh my God, it's so contrived to say loyalty. That's
but that's
boring.
true.
It's so boring, though.
I told one of my girlfriends last night, I texted her after preparing for this, and I said something like, "Thank you for your loyalty," because I was thinking of that word.
Yeah. How about this? Okay, I was thinking consistent inconsistency, which is like, you know that person you haven't seen in 6 years, 5 years, and you can pick it up like you didn't miss a beat?
Yeah.
That's a friend.
Yeah.
That's somebody who you're just like, oh my God, there's some chemical thing. It's not just have to have a constant tether to each other.
Right. I love that. What would be a dream place for you to vacation?
I've always wanted to go to India, and I'm hoping to go there next month, but I've always wanted to visit India. Or sorry, January.
January. We don't know when we're putting this out. So you're going there soon.
2020.
You're going to be going there in 2020.
It sounds so far away, right? 2020.
I know. We're at the end of a decade.
Mm-hmm.
So weird. What's your favorite movie?
Oh, I guess Office Space.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Sorry. I've been
awesome.
there because I've been there. I know it. If you've ever worked in
corporate America,
in that type of
I have not, but that is so funny.
Yeah,
do you watch The Office?
No, but that movie.
You would love The Office.
Yeah,
you have to watch
but
it.
It share. I've watched, of course, The Office, but it has. And anybody who's been there knows exactly what's going on.
What was your first concert?
Santana, because I'm cool.
Old school.
Santana.
Nice.
Yeah, it's still around.
Where? I saw Santana in Vegas.
So I grew up in New York, upstate, and Saratoga Springs is an outdoor venue, and that's where I saw it. And I remember smelling a lot of marijuana, and not.
How old were
really,
you?
Oh, I probably was 13.
Okay, final question on the rapid fire, and then we're going to dig deep into your childhood. Introvert or extrovert?
People think I'm an introvert, so I'm going to say introvert.
But what do you think you are?
Introvert.
Yeah. So, I think people misunderstand what introvert and extrovert. I read a whole book around it, the Quiet book from Susan Cain. It's actually really good. Yeah. It's where you get your energy, like from people, or like, do you need to kind of withdraw and get your energy inward? Like, I'm clearly an over-the-top extrovert.
That's why I like you.
Well, thanks.
It goes yin and yang with me.
Well, thanks. I like you too. Okay, so you said you're from upstate New York. I did not know that. Good to know. You're a New Yorker. That makes sense.
What part makes sense?
Just that you're a New Yorker.
Because most people say they're like, "You're from New York. You don't seem like you're an asshole." And I'm like, "Wow, well,
no,
I am."
you're just a net kind of good person. You seem pretty bottom line. I don't know. No, am I wrong?
Yeah, I was thinking about getting ready for this interview, and I was thinking about my childhood and other things about my life, and I was thinking my dad is such a fair play kind of person, and that's fair play was like built into everything. Like my dad would find a $20 bill on the floor of a restaurant, and he would give it to the cashier or the waiter.
Yeah,
and
well,
say,
that's
"Oh,
the
I
right
just
thing to
found
do,
this." And,
for sure.
and it's just as a kid, I'd be like, "What are you doing?
Yeah.
Pocket that thing."
Pocket that thing. And you, are you more like your mom or your dad?
I'm definitely a mix of the two.
Are they alive
Yes.
and married?
Yes.
Whoa, you and me both. We're lucky.
Yeah.
That's rare.
I think the family tradition is to stick to things for a long time,
Yeah.
including relationships, but
Once you're in,
business
you're in.
too. My dad worked same company for 30 years. I've been doing real stuff for over a decade. So
Yeah.
there's
And
a
your dad
pattern there.
so he was in what industry?
He worked in finance for General Electric, GE.
Oh, okay.
Which was like I was like that company town kind of town.
Yeah. So small town.
Small town, not much going on.
Did you go?
Left one friend there. He's still there.
Did you go into the city? Was Manhattan like?
No, it's too far away.
Yeah. So it's a couple
Literally
hours, right?
3 hours.
Oh,
so
3 hours.
It was like a different world to go to Manhattan. Pretty easy.
And you have siblings?
I have a sister. She lives here in the Seattle region.
Oh,
She's a
she
teacher.
does?
Mm-hmm.
And where are you in the birth order?
She's definitely older than me.
If she's listening, she's going to be like, really? She's a teacher?
She's a teacher.
And what did your mom do? Was she at home or was she working?
No, well, she stayed home. She was she always aspired to be a writer, editor. She was a poet and wrote poetry, and then got an editorial role. And so when we were kids, she's little, she stayed with us and then went back to work. But she ended up at GE as well as an editor. So there was a lot of same company conversations at the dinner table.
Well, it's good. So business was, I guess, a conversation at the dinner table. Is that a value in the house?
I think if you grow up in a town where it's just one company, there's not a lot of dynamic nature of it. You don't talk about that much. It just is sort of a constant, a continuum. Mm-hmm. And you talk about other things. You look at other things, and in our household is like, how do we escape Schenectady and go other places and go on vacations and try to travel, and my parents are more oriented towards that, and I am as well, to go explore than to stay tuckered in and talk about the same thing every day.
So how would they have described you, your friends, in like fifth grade? Who were you?
Fifth grade, I was awkward. Well, people could still say that about me. So I was very awkward and yearning for attention. I would be constantly, trying to talk to the teacher about things that had nothing to do with the class at hand, just explore what are their interests. And also I was obsessed with things that I see my children now obsessed with, which is I was coin collecting, stamp collecting, baseball collecting. I was just in that collecting crap mode.
Mm-hmm. Do you still have that stuff?
Oh, yeah. The kids are diving in going, can I have this coin, that coin? And so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. And I didn't tell them anything about it, but they discovered my
DNA
coin collection. And now they're really into it. And they want to look up how much the coins are worth. And when I look it up, it makes me want to cry. Because here's a coin I've carried with me for decades and decades, and they're like, it's worth that quarter's worth 26 cents. So
you're like, awesome, Dad, good investment.
Bad investment.
So were you a good student?
Not really. No, I was. My fifth grade teacher. I ran into him when I was in college at a shop in my hometown, and he said, Tom Seery, and I was like, you remember me? He goes, I will never forget you. I was like, uh-oh, why? Why do you still remember me? And he goes, you are the single most incredible story I've ever seen in a child's development. And I was like what?
Oh, he's been fault tracking you?
He just said, I came in, and from my test scores leaving fourth grade and departure in fifth grade, said he's never seen an increase in scoring, whatever that's worth, in a single year. So I would say fifth year is when I finally figured things out and,
Nice.
and applied myself, I guess. But he made education so fun, and we would do just crazy things like listen to radio shows and just have a good time at school.
Yeah.
Which is what I want for my children every day. I talk to them. I just want them to love education and learning. And
Do you have them in private or public?
we call it independent.
What does that mean?
It's private, but it's
You just don't want to sound snobby.
well, yeah, I guess that's where they came up with the naming. I didn't.
Oh,
They call it independent school.
independent school.
Yeah.
And you went to public?
Oh, yeah.
And what about Krista?
Both, yeah.
She also
I
went
think
to
public school people hang out with each other.
Yeah. And so in your mind, you're saying, like, I don't want to have my kids be little, like, snobby private school kids.
Well, I'm not worried about in Seattle a snobby scene here. I just want to keep them grounded.
Yeah. I have to say, I went to both private and public. And
You seem very polished.
who, me?
Yes.
That's so sweet. Thank you. I really appreciate that. My private school was highly academic, and I learned so much. So I wouldn't feel any shame around it. I think you're being a good daddy. I think it's great.
One of the things that was amazing the other day, I said to my son, my older son, he's
How old are your
8,
kids?
8 and 7. So
You got babies.
yeah, they're still babies, but yeah, I'm the old. You're looking at me going like, "Are you the oldest one in the class?" Yeah, I am. Okay, so let's get
I'm
that
not
off
going
the
to ask
table.
you how old you are. The good news is that you've got
no.
access to any sort of
Exactly.
service that you may
Timeless.
want through Real Self. You
Real
can just,
Self is the
You can just
perfect-
freeze yourself if you want.
Yeah, and I know like 1,000 dermatologists.
Exactly. You
others.
got a guy or a girl
Yeah, in every city.
in every city. Yeah, so you're
every
good.
zip code.
Don't worry about it.
But my son came home and I said, "What did you learn today in school?" And you know how kids just say, "Oh,
Nothing. Yeah.
He goes, "Kindness." And I was like,
Oh,
"Okay, I'm going to write that check again for
Yes.
tuition." It's
Yes,
like totally
exactly.
worth it. That's
empathy,
so beautiful.
mindfulness. I know these days it's like, really?
Well,
Okay, so
social emotional, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
didn't. That was not an emphasis. I guess that's what I was going back to my 5th grade.
yeah.
I don't think I had any emotional intelligence until 5th grade hit. And that's when I started like seeing there was a broader, bigger world, questioning things, asking good, being curious.
Yeah.
And I think that just kind of sparked at that age.
Yeah,
you know.
I love it. And so you went off to Connecticut College. Was that where people go, is to stay in that region? Or were you looking at all over the country?
I think I was trapped by sort of my own understanding of where to go. My parents were like, "You can go wherever you want," which was for what are we, 18 then or 17? I can't remember. How old
18.
I mean, being an 18-year-old saying, "Go figure out where you want to spend, your college career or your college life," is kind of a big.
Well, Connecticut College is small, right?
Oh, small. So
Yeah.
I think I wanted something small that wasn't heavy up on things like fraternities and sororities and football teams and all that stuff where you have to fit in. I was looking for something a little bit outside of that, but also with good, strong academics and respect. And so I don't know. I can't remember
Was that
exactly
the
how
right
took
choice?
over.
I mean,
I think
that-
they had a nice brochure too.
Yeah, exactly. That helps. And was that the right choice for you?
I wish as I've spent so much time on the West Coast now, I've been here almost 20 years. I wish I had broadened my view and looked at schools all across the country and really thought
So I have
bigger
the
and
opposite.
broader.
I went to UW here,
Mhm.
and I wish, I mean, it was fine, but it was exactly what you're talking about. The fraternities, the sororities, the football team, which at the time I wanted. Now I look back, I'm like, I would have done great, like small East Coast liberal arts. That's like a regret, slightly.
Yeah.
And the grass is always greener. So what brought you out west? Like when you graduated, what'd you do next?
Yeah, I worked for a congressman down in D.C. It was during a recession, and I couldn't find a job, and because I was like liberal arts major, master of nothing
Or everything.
just knowledge of a lot of things, very little knowledge of how to do anything, and I decided to go work for a congressman. I applied for an internship and I think I was paid like $500 a month.
Hopefully you had roommates.
I had lots of roommates, still friends with one of them to this day, who still lives in D.C. And that was cool. And then I ran into an executive for a computer company called Unisys. And I told that person after I met them, I think it was before email, so I don't know how I must send them a letter. And
Old school.
and my
Maybe
resume.
a fax.
Yeah, maybe it was a fax. Those did exist. I'm not that old. And he said, "Why don't you come up to Philadelphia and interview?" And I interviewed, and they gave me a job. So I ended up in the tech world in a weird way. And then when I was at at Unisys, I was one day in the cafeteria, of course, wearing a tie. You know, you had to wear a tie.
What was Unisys? What is that?
It's an old, it was like one of those foundational companies in computing where it was Univac, Spare Univac, and RAND Corporation. So like Remington RAND typewriters, Univac is like one of the first computers ever designed and built. They were just an incredible history, and but one of those conglomerates that just didn't make a lot of sense and couldn't figure out how to innovate. You used to be able to see them when you checked in at the airport. All the computer terminals were Unisys or.
And what was your role there?
I was just a project manager, and I'm in the cafeteria one day, and I'm reading about secretaries, as they were called back then, retiring from Microsoft in Seattle and buying second homes in the San Juan Islands. And I was like, I don't even know what that is, but it sounds fancy. And how the heck at 30 are you able to retire? And in the article, it proceeded to talk about how they had exercised or cashed in stock options. And I didn't even know what that was. So I looked it up and realized on the West Coast, they must believe you should be an owner and part of something bigger as opposed to just an employee with a number. So I literally told my roommates and I told my girlfriend, who is now my wife.
Well, that was one of my questions. How did you meet Krista?
Well,
but you'll go on.
Yeah, and we were dating pretty early, kind of in that dangerous stage of dating where like you want to come and move across country and live with me kind of thing. It was a pretty risky move for everyone. And so we packed up my Honda Civic and drove across country and came to Seattle.
And you were literally just like searching for the dream of stock options.
I think it was more startups, innovation, interesting things, the opposite of Schenectady, New York, things that dynamic. And
how'd you choose Seattle?
Well, a couple things. One was one of my good friends who I went to college with was from here, and I came out to Seattle. He's a very worldly person, and when I visited him here in Seattle, here's a person, he lived in Germany, his parents are German, and he's grew up here, in Queen Anne, and but he just loves Seattle so much. He goes, this is where I will always be, and kind of to you, you're here. There must be something special about this region.
I left for so many years and came back. There is something pretty special. But I think anybody feels that about where they grew up. And
Nope.
No, not Schenectady or whatever.
See, I'm going to get you to spell it before we finish this. Yeah.
I'm pretty good at spelling.
You'll never get it. I'll bet you a box of donuts you will not spell Schenectady.
I'm trying really hard not to eat donuts, so it's got to be something else. But yeah. Okay, so you came out here with Krista in the Honda Civic and landed where?
We landed. Okay, so my parents, meanwhile, retired, and they said we're moving to Seattle. And I know, weird, but that's
so
kind
cute.
of my family thing. And so it coincided where my parents were going to move here. One of my best friends was going to live here. He was in Germany at the time, and then. I wanted to be here based on just what I read in the Wall Street Journal about what kind of companies are here. So it just kind of worked together to make sense. It was here or the Bay Area, and I convinced my wife that this would be a better place. And the first time we came here, she cried. When she was like,
Was it raining?
It was raining. She was
and
like,
the sky was like on top of your head.
She was so sad.
Yeah.
And
is she like it now?
So it was about 2 weeks after we lived here. That we're driving along one day, and she's just looking out the window of the car, in the passenger seat. She just said out loud, "I love it here," and it was so weird. It was just like I was like so overjoyed, like thank God, because having your partner, in a place
happy
where
wife,
they're
happy life.
Yeah, well, she's my girlfriend time. Yeah.
So okay, so then you what? I want to know. Then what? You got a job? Or you went back to get an
Yeah.
MBA? Like, what'd you do?
Well, I did. I applied to UW to get an MBA because what do you do when you don't have a job and you have, a partner who's going to pay for it? So
What was she doing?
she worked for Merck,
Mm.
pharmaceutical company back east, and then she was rehired by Merck out here.
So
So,
she was only a girlfriend and she paid for you to get your MBA?
yeah,
God, go Krista.
I know she's awesome.
Very progressive.
Yeah, she was worried I was going to become a full-time student because I had already gotten a master's before that at night. So she was like, "Okay,
A seeker
this is your
of
last
a
one.
seeker of knowledge.
You get one more degree and you're done.
Yeah.
You got to go make some
Was
money."
it because you were trying to figure out what you wanted to be when you grew up, or you were just like, "Hey, I'm going to be more employable"?
Nope. It was just all based on I just love to learn. I just want to keep. The MBA was probably more commercial than the previous degree was.
What was that degree?
That was a master's in environmental science. That was just an interest. It was not a. It was just the company was going to pay for it, so I'm like, sure, I'll get a master's at night.
Yeah.
Sounds fun. So
So you went back and got your MBA.
got my MBA. Well, I started getting my MBA, and I was like, if any of my classmates are listening, I apologize if it is not to be insulting to any of them, but I found it incredibly boring, and I immediately thought I need to get something else going on the side, and I applied for an internship with a startup, and they said, sure, we'll hire somebody who knows what they're doing, or seems like they know what they're doing, and they were a tiny little startup called Vacation Spot, and it was started by two folks who had left Microsoft. And while I was an intern, they got acquired by Expedia, Microsoft Expedia. And Expedia had just done its spin out. And as soon as I could, I got a full-time job with Expedia then.
And how many employees were at Expedia at that time? We're talking early Expedia.
Yeah, maybe 150 max, a couple.
And so what was your
maybe
role when you were at Expedia? You were there for like 5 years?
6 years.
6 years. What did you do in that period?
My first job was to work for Lloyd Frank, and he's now one of the co-founders of, I guess he'll always be a co-founder of Zillow. And Lloyd was starting up a team to run what was just starting to be a hotels business, selling hotels online. And I was hired to be sort of a product planner / business development person. And on my first day, I remember a woman came to me. I wish I knew who it was. On my first day at Expedia, and she said, "Oh, did you just start?" And I said, "Yeah, it's my first day." She goes, "Oh, who do you work for?" I said, "Lloyd." She said, "Oh, he makes people cry." And then she ran away. And I was like,
no.
"Oh my God, what have I done?" But he never made me cry, and he's probably one of the, for those who know him, I mean, he is such an incredible leader and challenging, and he's kind of like a mini Bill Gates is what I think of. He's just incredible, and you can see it with what his career success has been. So I was very fortunate to get that opportunity, and I did a whole bunch of jobs. I can't even remember how many managers I had.
Yeah. Would you consider Lloyd a mentor?
I think in a weird way, with an unexplicit way. I really respected him. And then later, Rich Barden, who was the first person to back Real Self. And I think between the two of them, I've learned more about my personal development, career development, how to be a good people leader, how to be a thoughtful executive. And
did you always have the entrepreneurial bug, or at what point did you think, I think I kind of want to start something? Or was it an idea that came and then it was like, oh, wait, now I think I want to be an entrepreneur?
I think the difference between a person who has ideas and an entrepreneur is execution. So sure, I had tons of ideas as early as I can remember. I had a notebook. I would write down ideas, and then, pre-internet. And the internet was that thing that just became oh my gosh, this is such a moment in time that just is, I'm sure there's somebody who hopefully is listening now who's looking at a new avenue like AI as the next big thing, and they're going to jump on that.
Yeah.
And that's great.
And so at what point in your career at Expedia I read that, and I also know that you've told me that Krista was going to get some sort of laser treatment on her skin and wanted to review it, and you realized like, hey, you can review pretty much anything, but we can't find a way to kind of research A, this procedure, and B, like which doctors are best to give her this procedure. And that's how the aha moment came. Is that right?
Well, one of the things that was amazing at Expedia was just seeing firsthand how, technology was empowering us to make smarter decisions about really important things like where we're going to go on vacation with our family member or loved one. And then we were brought together by Barry Diller with TripAdvisor. And that was like, oh my God, look at what information you get and how empowering that is and how important it is.
I love TripAdvisor.
Yeah, and it just I just fell in love with it, and it was like no writers, it's humans who are real people writing these things. And I was like, where else can I bring an idea like that? Where else do we make big decisions in life? And I thought, well, health and our health care, our own well-being is so opaque and confusing. I mean, how often have you gone to a doctor and felt stupid? Like 9 out of 10 times? I don't know. And that's where the internet can play such an amazing role, just making us smarter about something really important. So I started toying around that area, and I told my wife I was going to quit my job, and perfectly good paying job, and go start something in healthcare, like TripAdvisor for healthcare is what I said. And she was like, that's a really bad idea. That's everything. That's so broad. It doesn't make any sense. And so I had to go back to work the next day. I'm like, oh shit, I'm still working.
Guess I'm not doing that.
But and then I did see a brochure later that she showed me where it was for a laser treatment for your face. And for those who are listening who don't understand that, don't worry, I didn't understand it either, which is like, wait, you can take a laser and burn somebody's skin off their face and make them feel like they are more confident, or they look better, or their skin is better. And it's a very bizarre concept of like burning skin off to make it healthier. And so I was just obsessed with like, what is this thing? And then my wife said, well, it's $1,500, and this is all they gave me for information, and I don't believe anything in it. And I was like, oh my God, travel agents used to do that. Like, hey, don't worry, you and your loved one are going to go, to Sandals. Have you ever been to Sandals?
No.
Don't go. So hopefully you don't have sponsors who are saying, Sandals Resorts.
Oh yeah, we have no sponsors. Yeah. We're not trying to monetize this thing. We're just having fun.
No, but they leave out, of course, the swimming pools being worked on. The brochure always has that picture of the white horse on the beach. Of course. Everybody's lovely.
The fine print too.
And then you get there and you're like, ooh. And that's where I was just like, wow, this is a really big decision someone's going to make. Like, they're going to burn their face off. Or what else are there? There's other treatments. You're
being so dramatic. IPL is great. We're not burning our skin off.
Well, it's micro,
I know.
The point is only that I started kind of going down the rabbit hole, like, going back to my educational, like, learning mode of like, well, what is this stuff?
Let's research it.
What are these procedures? And it just started opening and opening. I was like, well, this seems like a really important place to be informed and in control of your decision. And that's how the idea came about.
When I first met you, I don't know if you remember, but we were sitting in the lobby. It was 6 years ago, 6 years ago. And early for Fuel, not early for Real Self. But I remember just being like, this is such an obvious business. Like, why didn't I think of this? It's so awesome. I'm glad you started it.
Thank you.
And so do you have co-founders?
I don't. But, we have a team member, Maureen Ezcugo, who was my first person I hired, like maybe fourth person hired, but like first person to start sales. And she 9 years later is still with the company and running sales.
That's awesome.
And one of the strongest leaders that you'll ever encounter, and should really be on this side of the microphone. But I look to her as a co-founder, and because she was there for me. But if you define founder as the person who conceived the idea, sure, but who helped instrumental to get it going. I'd put her in there.
So I have lots of questions. What is the business model? How do you make money?
Yeah, the business model has always been not always been, but what we do is we allow doctors to basically sponsor their content and their profiles and showcase them on the platform. We call it Spotlight. Spotlight yourself. And so if you're a Seattle consumer looking at Invisalign, and you see a dentist is promoting pictures of their before and afters, we'll say this is a sponsored advertisement from a doctor and who offers Invisalign in Seattle. Would you like to learn more? So that's a subscription ad product we sell to medical practitioners in lots of different fields, but predominantly in cosmetic aesthetics, medical aesthetics. And we also have a lot of brand partners. So our brand partners include companies like Allergan, SkinCeutical, skincare company, a part of L'Oreal, and they participate with us in either on-site advertising, but in more robust ways. We're doing a lot of cool stuff offline. And the House of Modern Beauty is something we just completed and wrapped up here in Seattle, our second edition, as we call them.
What is that?
So House of Modern Beauty came about as a concept that, well, how do we make this industry, these treatments, these services, this information more accessible and imminently approachable? And so we our team conceived an idea of like, let's literally have a pop-up experience, very interactive, where you can go in as a consumer and see these things firsthand. What does a laser look like? What is an injection? How does it work? Why would I ever want to go get Botox, or should I ever get it? Both exploring those questions, hearing from panelists, doctors, experts, beauty enthusiasts, and then actually experiencing these treatments. So we do it all in one house. And we did it at South by Southwest here in Seattle. Now we're going to do one in New York City in December of 2019. And we'll do South by Southwest in 2020 as well, again, with House of Modern Beauty.
And so you said New York and then South by Southwest. And what's in Seattle?
Oh, we just wrapped it up. We did a weekend. So they're 2-day shows.
I want to be on the short
You would be
list.
VIP, so I don't know.
I'm pretty upset right now.
It's a great experience. But it goes to our business model. Yeah, so sponsors are the brands, and we have just a rule there, which is please give your product and services for free, and it's amazing. I mean, thousands and thousands of dollars of treatments can be provided for free to the attendees, and it's a great time.
And so, how did you come up with the name?
The name came about from. I did a little focus group in my living room of my house where my wife invited girlfriends of girlfriends over for a conversation about aesthetics. And so I sat there and took notes. And as these women were talking about the conversation was obviously awkward in the beginning. Like, what do you think about cosmetic surgery? And would you ever do it? And no one would talk really too much. And then after maybe 2 glasses of wine.
I was about to say, did you bring wine or tequila?
Wine for sure helps. And then this one woman said, well, I've never told anyone this, but I've had a nose job. And all the ladies, of course, were like, oh my God, you look so great. You look awesome. But how would no one have known? I mean, is it obvious? She goes, oh yeah, it's totally obvious. And she said that she had never told her family members. And it's just too hard to have that conversation. So she's just been living with this big decision. She went through a surgical procedure on her own, thousands of dollars, and it just opened up and uncorked this conversation. Everyone in the room had something to say, whether it's an interest or question, but it's very open and wonderful. And as that woman was leaving the house that evening, and that was, hopefully she didn't drive. But
she's like, oh my God, I just exposed myself.
But she said, this was one of the best times I've ever had. Can we do this again? And I said, yes, online. And that's where I got this idea of like having a really personal conversation and keeping it real, which I thought these women were doing amazing, authentic conversation. And it's really about what's right for yourself. And I just like the combination real and self came together.
I love it.
And somebody owned that domain because they wrote a book called The Real Self or something. And I wrote an email to the person and said, you willing to sell your .com? And I'm like, well, it's going to cost you. And I was like,
it
okay.
Expensive?
I think it was $400.
Oh, that's worth it. That's a nice investment. And then how did the conversation come to be with Rich?
Yeah, so I started the company I hired my friend Greg, who I said, hey, Greg, can you code? And he goes, I don't know, I'll try. And so we sat in my spare bedroom and we conceived how we were going to create, this concept around sharing your experiences with these different procedures and treatments and so forth. And whether they're worth it or not. The worth it concept was like, let's have a worth it rating, which is a aggregation of all the, was it worth it or not experiences. Mm-hmm. And so, on Real Self, you'll see something has a worth it rating.
Yeah, it's still there with the thumbs.
Thumbs up, thumbs. Yeah. Well, we keep playing with the graphics, but the idea is worth it, not worth it, and giving people a perspective on, what does it deliver in terms of for you personally, not is it a star rating, but is it, something you would do again, considering how much pain you went through, or expense, or personal risk, or social, friends judging you, all these things get factored into, was it worth it or not to go all through that procedure? So
but it doesn't show that to the consumer. It doesn't show how that decision's being made. It just shows worth it or not.
Yeah,
worth it.
it's
Like
just summarize it down.
87%.
Absolutely. And then you can dig into each individual underlying story. So
Yeah.
I was just looking the other day, and like our section for tummy tuck was over 20,000 posts related to worth it or not worth it, factored into
And
that.
what was the net of that one?
I think it hovers over 95%.
Yeah.
So which is interesting in itself. There's a conversation there. But I was doing this. I started the company self-funded for about 6 months, I would say. And I was just starting to get my first web traffic as people were starting to write content on the platform. And I got an email from Rich. And he said, I saw what you're doing, and I'd really love to talk more about it. And so I went to his office at Zillow. And
how well did you know him at the time?
I knew him like the CEO of the company, like
Of Expedia.
Yeah, of Expedia, and we had spent meetings together. But if the underlying question, or the question behind the question is like, was I nervous as shit? Yeah, I was like, oh my god.
Well, I was just like, I've met him, and he's super cool.
Yeah,
but he's got this Midas touch gold thing going.
Yeah, he's super approachable, but at the same time, he's
super
wickedly smart.
Yeah,
and I really didn't know what
you wanted
he
to make
wanted
sure you're
to talk
prepared.
about.
Yeah,
so I went in with my pitch and what I was doing, but I wasn't sure what he was going to conclude. And he said, "Well, are you trying to raise money?" And I said, "That would be good, just to be able to pay for some of the engineering that I need to do and so forth." And he said, "Well, I'd be happy to consider it, and just send me more information." So he, by virtue of that conversation, became my first angel investor. And really, after you have a lead investor like that, you're in a very fortunate place where others become like lemmings and say, "Sure, if Barton's in, I'm in."
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's...
And so where did it go from there? I know you've raised like $42 million so far.
Yeah, but Barton, and back in those days, that was 2006. He and the other angels put in $1.2 million and total over 2 rounds. And just more recently, we decided to go and do some growth equity financing at $40 million financing. So a big difference.
How was that experience?
Well, let's say it's nothing like the first experience. There's nothing to learn from the angel round to the following round, other than you still have to tell a great story. You have to have vision and say what you're going to do with the funds. And so I would say I was really excited to see how a company I started out with, that a lot of people would say, "Gosh, that seems really fringy and weird," to sitting down with some of the world's most incredible investors and funds that people can't even get in the door for, and just having, I think we had 6 term sheets come in. So we had our choice of investors. And
who did you ultimately go with?
So we picked and reached an agreement, I should say, with a group out of New York called Elephant, and they are one of our investor there is a gentleman by the name of Andy Hunt, and he is a co-founder of Warby Parker. So when I told the story of Real Self and the dream of building Real Self into a place where it becomes an iconic brand, I was thinking Warby Parker would be sort of the ideal kind of example of the kind of trajectory we'd like to be our business on, and the kind of love. I mean, I think I don't know. I don't have any data around this, but I do believe Warby Parker probably has one of the most loved brands in America, and I think they've been genius in how they've executed. So to have that founder investor relationship, just like I had with Rich, now at the growth equity stage, and combined with that, I just thought was like incredible benefit to the business.
I think he may have been the one. I heard the How I Built This. Have you ever listened to that podcast? I love that podcast. But they did the Warby Parker one, and that story is so cool.
It's so cool.
It's like the guys being in class and pretending like they're listening and taking notes, but they're actually like, holy shit, someone's buying glasses, and they don't know what to do. They don't have any way of processing. I mean, the story is unbelievable.
I think it's the the Warby team, I visited their office and spent time with their CEO and another founder, and just their relentless focus on the customer and the experience end to end is just something I admire tremendously, and I think Real Self can learn from, because we've always thought of ourselves more as, hey, we're a great place for information, like both a great, positive people say about Real Self, but also I kind of take it as a little bit of like, oh, I haven't done my job, is, wow, you have a lot of information. I'm like, actually, I think it's great, but I would rather you say, you have a lot of information, and I was able to make a smart, confident decision about something that's really important to me, which is related to X, Y, or Z,
And it was an easy thing to navigate.
Yeah, and it's super, it almost knew what I was looking for before I even had to say anything. It was predictive of some of the things and made me smart. Going back to that, it's like that comment I made about nobody likes to go anywhere these days to make big purchase decisions and feel inferior in information. And, you know.
Well, so a lot of the entrepreneurs that I've spoken to, and even people I've had on the podcast, I feel like the best learnings are from failures. Are there steps that you've taken along the way that you wish you had done something different?
Wow.
In the business?
I just think, I was saying to my wife, gee, I have learned more in probably the last 24 months than I ever have in all of my years of business combined. I just feel like I'm on a constant, oh my gosh, learning mode. And boy, if I had this knowledge at the beginning, I could have really rounded some of those corners, and I think I would be in a different place perhaps for the business. And she had that look of dread, like, you're not going to do another business, are you?
We've kind of already
like,
done
what am
this.
Of course I am. Of course I can't stop. I would love to help others. I'm very involved, in UW and student groups, and people are trying to, any entrepreneur who reaches out to me, I'm willing to take a coffee. I want to be there to be the super supporter, and
be careful, you're going to get hit up.
It's okay. It's okay.
And what would you say are the most commonly researched procedures?
Well, the higher the risk, the more research you do. If you think about your own life, like when you're making big outlays of like, say, a home purchase or even a car.
That makes sense.
So as you go into also more invasive procedures, you see the time individuals spend on it goes up. So surgical being like highly considered. We see that in our data at Real Self. The average person spends multiple years looking at these considerations that are higher, higher risk, higher cost, and so forth. Where things that are less, they're more temporary, like say a Botox injection, which is a 3-month duration, that might be a 3 to 6 month consideration.
If at all. Just like Botox almost seems like people are like brushing their teeth. I mean, maybe
it's
not.
Changed a lot.
It's changed a lot, the perceptions of it. And where are the trends as far as the industry?
This industry has gone from kind of parked into, wealthy exurbs of LA and New York to mainstream, where
100%.
I met a dermatologist. She said, my patients are, the bazillionaire's wife all the way to the lunch lady. And it's like every person in my practice, can be at every socioeconomic class.
Absolutely.
And they can be any part of the country. So we see interest in medical aesthetics all the way from here in Seattle, where there's a tremendous interest in injectables and people asking for what is the most natural way to looking rested and like I haven't had work done, to places in the country, of course, where it's like, wow, how can I look like I'm really done up and so forth. So those trends are mostly tied to, however, in the end of the day, most people in the United States, as I speak for the United States right now, or speaking to the United States trends, are interested in non-surgical, minimally invasive, lower cost than surgical. And so we've seen at Real Self, over 500 treatments now are available. Different types of treatments are available. And that's more than a tripling than a few years ago. So it just keeps exploding, where you're getting more and more options, more and more choices. At the same time, more and more outlets and places to, you could be on a cruise ship and they're like, hey, we have, treatments available. Or you can be at your dentist. Like I was this morning at my dentist and they do Botox.
How about some
there.
Botox while we're
It's just
whitening your teeth?
So it's become sort of so
Well, no,
much
I'm
more
assuming like
accessible.
the access to celebrity and the access to social media and just all of that your timing could not have been better with this business. It's crazy.
I think we were too early to be
Well,
truthful.
2006. I'm just saying in this moment in time,
I agree with you.
The outward.
But there's still somebody listening to this, like maybe they turned it off now because they can't stand the idea. No, but there's still a lot of stigma.
Skeptics.
There's
of course.
lot of...
I have a few girlfriends who are kicking and screaming and are like, I will not. I'm going to go down.
Good for them.
And I'm not doing it. But they're extreme. They're either like, I'm either going all in or I'm not doing this at all because it's a moral or kind of values-based decision in their minds because they're like, what's so wrong with aging? If it's about aging.
It's better than the alternative.
It is better than the alternative. The other thing is that I love and that I think when we've done recruiting for you is important to talk about is the work that you're doing to give access to people with health issues like burns or cleft palate or other things. What's the work that you guys are doing in that area?
Yeah, both myself personally as well as the company have been embarking on efforts where we can support surgeons who donate their time and go on humanitarian trips abroad to do procedures on things like burns, congenital deformities, and things that can be repaired and person could have an opportunity in life. And we've done a lot of videos to capture these moments. But most importantly, I think for the one organization I'm really involved in on the board, which is called Research International, is teaching surgeons how to do these procedures themselves in those countries. So in India and in Vietnam and all parts of the world where they're really earnest, great doctors, but they don't have access to the same training. And if Real Self can help support confidence building or can support these efforts in any way possible, we do that.
I think that's amazing.
And it's part of its education too.
Yeah.
And both of our doctor community, so we have lots of doctors who see us talking about this, and I've probably turned a lot of doctors into humanitarians based on, wow, this is great. How do I get involved?
Yeah, and I'm sure that's a game changer for them, right?
Game changer for them personally.
Exactly. They're like, I'm actually moving the needle on some sort of legacy.
Totally.
I think that's amazing.
And they're here in Pacific Northwest. There's a group of surgeons who I know and are incredible surgeons, and they use their own funds to go to Cambodia every year to teach surgeons there how to do reconstructive surgery, a lot of craniofacial work. And I told them, you know what, my job is to make sure you get attention and or support for this because it's so important. And
that's incredible.
It's very personal.
And so, going back to Real Self, do people who come to work there have to be passionate, obviously, about what you're building? And if so, is that an easy sell, or do you feel like it's a difficult sell?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have this remarkably cool way of filtering out people who just want a job for a job's sake and just want money, because our purpose is something that either you believe in it or you don't.
Right. If you get it, you get it.
Right. And
I get it.
Yeah.
In case you want to recruit
and we
me.
see, you would have so much fun with us.
I would. I love being over there. Your offices are killer too.
Yeah, we have a great space
and really good snacks.
We have good snacks, dogs.
It'd be like
good benefits,
chunky.
No, you know what? If you have the same, here's what I've learned: if you have the same snacks every day, they stop getting.
No.
No,
because you have M&Ms, right?
They're mixed in with nuts, though, so you got to work through them.
Yeah, but I would trust me. I'm patient like that.
Yeah, no, but I think we, what we've been looking for, have been people who are kind of full company interests, meaning they would act not just what's interesting to them in their own career and their own little space, but what is good for the whole and for the whole team, but for the whole business and for the consumer. And I always just look for curiosity.
I was wondering if that was part of your values that you've set up for the company.
I gave a talk to the company in January, and I to kick off the year, and I talked about resilience, which I know is part of your podcast as well. You know, the resilient executive or founder or business person or person in life. And then I discovered after I gave this big long talk, oh, that's the word of the year. So
you're on trend at least.
So I was like, wow, original thought, Tom.
Yeah.
You know, like, but actually, I think that's what defines our company is that, and me personally, and that's where the synergy exists between like the CEO, the founder, and the company and the people is we're a resilient group of people. We just do not give up. We are so determined, and we know our purpose is good. And
what will the measurement be of like we've arrived?
I think when our head of PR gets so many calls inbound to interview us that she's saying, no, stop calling me, or you'll have to just wait another 6 months. Like that type of like so much inbound, you're just actually able to sift through and say what you really want to, you know, who you're really willing to talk to. And
yeah.
so,
And how do you spend your time right now?
Wow. Well, we hired a chief operating officer who has enabled me, and I think there's a really big learning in there for me in terms of what I can be as a CEO and a founder is really my strengths are going to be in idea generation, in sharing the story of Real Self, talking to doctors, consumers, going to House of Modern Beauty events, and
coming on podcasts,
recruiting. And I've got my own content series I just created called Hey Seery, which is
I like that.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Well, you know,
who came up with that?
Well, I was the original Seery. My family's the original Seery,
well,
and then they ripped it off.
But you're a different spelling.
That was my idea. I mean,
I like it.
But
I like that. So you said you spent some time on recruiting. Are you good at that?
Oh, I think
like, are you a good closer?
Looking across the table at you?
No. I'm not saying it like that. I'm just saying like.
No, I think you're far more experienced than I will ever be in that. So I will. Well,
it's not necessarily about experience. It's about like some CEOs that I meet with are like, just put the person in front of me. Trust me, I will close them. Do you feel like you can get anybody to understand the vision, or do you just like if you don't get it, don't even bother?
Yeah, it's a two-way street, I guess. I don't sell people on the concept. I mean, if they don't get it and believe in it at some level, then I'm not there to be the salesperson.
To try to convince them. Yeah.
However, as far as like, are we a good employer? Do we offer career opportunities? Do we believe in diversity, equity, inclusion, and things? What are benefits? Like, yeah, I will sell those.
Sell that part.
Sell that. You know, we are 64% female.
Nice.
And we've been introducing lots of female leaders and giving a lot of internal opportunity to females.
Thank you on behalf of all females.
And really trying to think hard about how can we be more inclusive. So I think we just want to be different. We have to be in this environment. You recruit for some great companies.
Yeah.
I feel somewhat, you know, smaller companies feel a little bit surrounded right now, I think, by the firepower of Google, Facebook, Apple, every company on Amazon, you know, just rolling out more and more fatter checks and bigger perks and so forth.
Yeah.
So we have to do things. And
well, it's good that you get that, and that's important. Are there attributes aside from getting it and being passionate and curious that are kind of common threads among your rock stars?
I feel like we have been hiring such incredible people who added to incredible people. So what I see common between them or amongst them is just an inordinate amount of empathy for the consumer and the customer. They like it's just in their nature to want to be like, they don't have to be told to be customer centered. They are.
This is a DNA thing.
And they, like I said earlier, they want to just do things for the greater good of the team, the company, the vision, and our mission, and aren't so stuck on what's best for their own little world.
Yeah, I love that. How do you spend your time outside of work? How do you relax, and what do you do for fun?
Oh, I don't relax ever.
You literally don't?
No, not much. I mean, my relaxation.
Do you watch TV?
Well, let me answer the relaxation I do is Peloton bike. My wife got one of those, and now I'm like, an addict on. I won't tell you who I am on there if you have one. I'm like, my name will not be revealed. But
Hey Seery, let me guess, it's Hey Seery.
no, that's too obvious. But that, in a weird way, is relaxation because it's just intense, and it's allows me to like put my energy towards something that
Get a little schwitz.
Yeah, just what does that mean?
You have to know this. You're a New Yorker. It's like the Yiddish word for sweat. Come on.
Yeah.
Schwitz. At least I'm schooling you. Look at your learning.
I learned a lot.
You learned
from
a little
today.
something. And how do you like to spend time with the kids?
They are truly, if you asked me a question like, who are my heroes in life? And it sounds so contrived, but it's my children because of how optimistic and how beautiful they are and how they approach life. They're what are my joy every night, along with my wife, of course, but they are fun. You know what it's like at this age.
Yeah.
They are curious as all get out and the most creative souls I've ever encountered.
I love it. And so what would you say is your dream Saturday? Like nothing on the agenda, no stress, you get to do whatever you want, and no kids.
Oh, no kids.
Yeah, we don't have kids now. It's just a day for Tom. What are you going to do?
You know, my wife and I, once in a while, we get a chance to go to Discovery Park here in Seattle, which is a giant, beautiful park that feels like you're in nature, and yet you can get home pretty quick if you need to or want to. And just going there and doing what we call the loop there, and just chatting and talking. And we just have a really good moment to just, I don't know. That to me is a great day.
Yeah.
Going on a hike with my wife.
Going on a hike I like that. So sweet. You're earning lots of points right now. All the women are like, my husband didn't say that. Just kidding.
What would you say otherwise? Like going to a Husky game?
No, like I've actually asked people, they're like, just getting out by myself, like basically space from everyone. And you're like, it's sweet that you want to spend your day with Krista.
You know, being a CEO is one of the loneliest jobs. And like, oh, cry me a river. But it's actually a very lonely job because you really can't.
You don't want to show your vulnerabilities to your investors, to your board members.
And I come home, my
team.
wife's like, tells me about all the things the kids did that day and things. And so I don't really have an outlet.
Yeah.
So the opportunities I have to be with someone who is like in a complete no judgment mode and just talk about other things is just so good for me and my soul.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so what would you say ultimately fuels you?
Yeah, I mean, I care a lot about community in general. I mean, my Real Self is a community in itself, both as a team of people, but also on the internet.
The online, yeah, for sure.
So I do love that. I don't think there's you know how have you ever gone to a trainer and they say, well, you need to have a goal, what's your goal? And I just say, I'm here to get fit. It's just like to stay fit.
It's a big word.
Keep my heart beating.
Yeah.
And yet I'm able to pour it on. Like if you saw me in Peloton, I'm always trying to beat somebody who's younger than me, and I'm like kind of constant competing. And you're like, well, where are you trying to go with this? I'm like, I think I'm just curious at knowing my limits and exploring those edges.
Like that.
And they say you should always set goals that are just beyond your grasp. I think I'm just finding things all the time that are just beyond my grasp, and trying to achieve that is, being successful in business is. I don't feel like I've completed the journey of Real Self and in my career yet, and I will not say I'm a success until something happens that I can say it's there.
But that's super motivating to hear you say that, and I hope that my kids, I want them to listen to the podcast here and there, and I'm going to tell them to listen to this one because I like that, just this intrinsic drive to be better. Yeah,
and our world needs more people like your kids to.
Well, hopefully you haven't met them yet, but yeah.
No, but I mean, to come with that attitude of like, what can I do to have an impact, and even if it's a micro impact, that it just slightly improves you and along with it the world. I think we're all going to be in a better place.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm glad I'm glad I got some time with you.
I really enjoyed it.
I always love seeing you.
It's
so
awesome
fun.
to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the What Fuels You podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, and follow us on social media to keep up with the latest news and episodes. You can also contact us at podcast@fueltalent.com. to provide feedback, ask questions, and share topics or guests you would like us to cover in the future. We hope you feel inspired by our guests and that we have helped fuel your day. Join us next time for another episode of What Fuels You.